welcome. You're watching World Today with me, Geeta Mohan. This is a very important story that we are bringing to you. This is again fiery protests that are going to continue in Los Angeles. And now we're looking at the National Guard that is going to be placed in Los Angeles and will continue to remain there, is what President Donald Trump has said. This comes at a time when there are massive protests against ICE raids in the United States of America, across the United States of America, but particularly in Los Angeles. We've seen how there have been protests, incidents of vandalization, as also mob violence across Los Angeles. And US authorities have revealed that they had arrested, that there are incidents of violence that are occurring across Los Angeles. Hundreds of US Marines arrived in Los Angeles overnight, and more are expected under orders from US President Donald Trump. He has also activated 4,000 National Guard troops to quell protests, despite objections from California governor and and other local leaders. The story over here is also that Donald Trump says that the National Guards are going to stay in Los Angeles. California filed a lawsuit on Monday asserting that Trump's deployment of Guard troops without the governor's consent was illegal. The Guard deployment was the first time in decades where an American president activated the Guard without a request from a sitting governor. Trump claims his decision to send Guards and then Marines have been an effective and a good one, but the protests now seem to be spreading beyond Los Angeles to other states and cities as well.
If there's an insurrection, I would certainly invoke it. We'll see. But I can tell you last night was terrible. The night before that was terrible. We have, as you've seen, it was on most of your networks, people with big, heavy hammers pounding the concrete and pounding curbs, pounding it, breaking up, and handing these big chunks of concrete to people. And they were taking that concrete, going up on bridges and dropping it into the roof of a car. They were throwing it at our police. They were throwing it at our soldiers that are there. And we got it stopped, and we have them in custody right now. Look, if we didn't get involved, right now, Los Angeles would be burning, just like it was burning a number of months ago with all the houses that were lost. Los Angeles right now would be on fire, and we have it in great shape.
They danced in protest. They laid down on ground, making a peace sign. They carried the American and Mexican flags. And they looked at the authorities straight in the eyes. Defiant, determined, deterred by nothing. Protests in Los Angeles, with hundreds of demonstrators gathering outside a federal detention center where immigrants have been held, continued despite deployment of National Guards and Marines.
Someone like me, like a young white person that was born and raised in California, like, it's our job to stand up with them and say that we don't stand for this either. And I'm not really scared of them. I'm more scared of what our country's becoming. We're sick of Trump. We're sick of everything. They're taking families away. We just want to be left alone. And I think America's really scary right now. And the only thing that kind of brings us hope is being here all together.
Tensions have been rising since US President Donald Trump activated the National Guard on Saturday. On Monday, he cleared deployment of another 2,000 National Guards. The Trump administration on Monday ordered US Marines into Los Angeles and intensified raids on suspected undocumented immigrants. 700 Marines based in South California were dispatched for Los Angeles. US President expressed his support for the arrest of California Governor Gavin Newsom.
And what crime has he committed that would warrant his arrest? What crime has Governor Newsom committed?
A crime has he committed?
Yeah, to warrant his arrest, as you had suggested earlier.
I think his primary crime is running for governor, because he's done such a bad job What he's done to that state is like what Biden did to this country. And that's pretty bad. It's the wrong philosophy. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants, many of them prisoners. They're taking up your health care. They're taking up your space in schools. They're taking up your hospital. And in many cases, they're criminals.
The fissure between California administration and the Oval Office widens. California sued the Trump administration over its deployment of National Guard troops to Los Angeles during protests over immigration raids.
I, in partnership with Governor Gavin Newsom, are suing President Trump and asking the court to set aside the president's unlawful action federalizing the California National Guard.
While the federal government and the California administration fight and protests rage, city workers started cleaning up of graffiti and burnt mangled vehicles from downtown Los Angeles. The fire of protests is spreading across America to Texas, New York, Chicago, Atlanta, and San Francisco to denounce immigration raids by the Donald Trump administration. Bureau Report, India Today.
Amid all the controversy regarding Marines and National Guard being sent to Los Angeles, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, in a subcommittee congressional hearing, refused to divulge details regarding the cost of sending these Marines to Los Angeles. There's a to and fro, a back and forth with the top Democrat at the subcommittee hearing. Listen in to what really happened. He went on to refusing to divulge details about the cost, but fell back on political rhetoric and political talking points.
In Los Angeles, we believe that ICE, which is a federal law enforcement agency, has the right to safely conduct operations in any state and any jurisdiction in the country, especially after 21 million illegals have crossed our border under the previous administration. ICE ought to be able to do its job, whether it's Minneapolis or Los Angeles.
I have limited time. I asked a budget
and they
question.
Are being,
Could the Secretary please address the budget? Thank you.
You asked about the situation in Los Angeles, and we believe ICE agents should be allowed to be safe in doing their operations, and we have deployed National Guard and the Marines to protect them in the execution of their duties, because we ought to be able to enforce immigration law in this country, unlike what Governor Walz did in 2020. There are 17,000 LAPD, you mentioned that. There would be 18,000 if not for the defund movement that folks like Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass have implemented. The police chief said she was overwhelmed,
If the Secretary's not going to ask the budgetary questions, I will yield back my time if the Secretary refuses to answer the budgetary questions I put before him. They're important. What training missions aren't happening? Where are you pulling the money from? And how are you planning this in the moving forward? These are budget questions that affect this committee and the decisions we're going to be making in a couple of hours. If you're not going to answer them, please let the chairman know, and I will take back my time and I will yield it back to the chairman.
Mr. Secretary, I want to just let us know what accounts you're pulling the money to fund.
Thankfully, unlike the previous administration, we've got a 13% increase in our defense budget, and we will have the capability to cover down on contingencies, which is something the National Guard and the Marine plan for. So we have the funding to cover down on contingencies, especially ones as important as maintaining law and order in a major American city. As far as training,
U.S. President Donald Trump and Tesla CEO Elon Musk seem to be on a truce call after a very ugly public feud the whole of last week. On Monday, President Trump, in a public announcement, said that he's going to move the Tesla car that was gifted to him by Elon Musk out of the White House, although he's keeping Starlink. Now, last week, in the middle of the heated social media war, Trump hinted at selling the Tesla car he bought from Musk. In fact, on Monday, when the reporters asked him whether Musk has ever taken drugs while he was in White House, he gave a guarded response to shield his former ally in the administration. Listen into the entire conversation between Donald Trump and reporters.
Are you going to get rid of the Tesla and the Starlink service that you have here at the White House?
No, I haven't heard that. I mean, I may move the Tesla around a little bit, but I don't think we'll be doing that with Starlink. It's a good service.
And there was this New York Times report that he did not want to talk about, Elon Musk, that alleged that he, towards the end of his time in the White House, was blurring the lines between recreational use of drugs and medicinal. Do you think he ever had drugs here at the White House?
I really don't know. I don't think so. I hope not. Look, I wish him well. You understand. We had a good relationship, and I just wish him well. Very well, actually.
On Elon Musk, do you plan to speak to him on the phone anytime soon?
I haven't really thought about it, actually. I would imagine he wants to speak to me. I would think that. If I were him, I'd want to speak to me, and maybe he's already called. You'd have to ask him whether or not he's already called. But I'd have no problem with it.
At the New York International Airport in New York, an Indian student who went to America on a valid visa was later handcuffed, pinned down by US authorities. The video has gone viral on social media. Indian Ministry of External Affairs, as also Indian Consulate in New York and the Embassy in Washington, all of them have raised concerns and raised the matter with US authorities, all of them ascertaining details, but awaiting details on what really transpired, what really happened. Take a look at this report.
A disturbing scene unfolded at Newark Airport in the US, sparking public outcry. An Indian student, handcuffed, pinned to the ground, treated like a criminal. The incident was caught on camera and shared by eyewitness Kunal Jain. Jain, an Indian-American entrepreneur, says that the student was crying, speaking in Haryanvi and pleading, "I am not mad." But the authorities tried to make him look like one.
At the port of entry, he could not probably explain these authorities why he was there, or somebody doubted that he has some mental issue or whatnot. But the way they were treating him and not allowing anybody to talk to him in Hindi, or he did not have an attorney access or whatever it is, that kind of treatment, even the United States don't give it to terrorists. That was very painful.
The Indian consulate in New York has stepped in, confirming contact with US authorities and promising support for the student. This incident comes amid an escalating US crackdown on international students, with visa revocations tied to everything from protests to traffic violations. And just last week, another shocker was reported. A 42-year-old Indian origin man in Australia was critically injured after police allegedly knelt on his neck during an arrest, a haunting echo of George Floyd's incident. Two nations, two incidents, but one growing concern. Are Indians being treated fairly abroad? Bureau Report, India Today.
A chilling incident, one of the worst of its kind when it comes to school shooting, took place in Austria. A former student who went ahead and killed 9 people and then himself at a secondary school shootout that also injured 12 others in the southern Austrian city of Graz. Most of the victims were students, though the motive of the attack is not known yet. Police said they assumed the 21-year-old Austrian shooter, who was found dead in a bathroom, was operating alone when he entered the school with 2 guns and opened fire.
Today is a dark day in the history of our country. The killing spree at a school here in Graz is a national tragedy that shakes us to the core. 9 people were suddenly torn from their lives by this inconceivable act. There are no words to express the pain, the bewilderment, and the grief felt by the whole of Austria. Today is a dark day in the history of our country. The killing spree at a school here in Graz is a national tragedy that shakes us to the core. 9 people were suddenly torn from their lives by this inconceivable act. There are no words to express the pain, the bewilderment, and the grief felt by the whole of Austria.
The United States of America and Iran are going in for another round of talks, but with Iran's enrichment program progressing really fast, accelerating at lightning speed, as also regional tensions flaring up, the big question is diplomacy running out of time?
Just a lot of things, and it went very.
A new chapter is unfolding in the tense relationship between the United States and Iran, and the stakes involved could not be higher. After months of indirect negotiations in Muscat, both sides are preparing for a pivotal new round of nuclear talks to be held this week. Iran's foreign ministry says it will present a reasonable, logical and balanced counter-proposal to the latest US offer. While US officials warn that time is running out to reach a diplomatic solution, this as Iran is expanding its uranium enrichment program and rebuilding its axis of resistance. From the Houthis in Yemen to Hamas in Gaza and Hezbollah in Lebanon, Iran's proxies have seen setbacks in recent months. But Iran is rearming them. Further, Iran's nuclear program today isn't what it was in 2015. It enriches uranium to 60% with ease, far above the 3.67% limit set in the previous deal.
I say it because it is true that enriching uranium per se is not a forbidden activity, which is something my Iranian counterparts always tell me, and they tell the world. So that is true. At the same time, when you accumulate and continue to accumulate, and you are the only country in the world that is doing something like this at a level which is very, very close to the level that you need to have a nuclear explosive device, then we cannot ignore it.
Just hours before Iran's announcement, President Trump even spoke to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for 40 minutes. Emphasizing that a deal is needed to avoid destruction and death. International nuclear watchdogs also warn that any military action could push Iran to seek weapons outright, raising the stakes even higher. For Washington, preventing Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons is key to keeping the Middle East stable. So Trump, who withdrew from the original Iran nuclear deal in 2018, calling it a horrible one-sided agreement, is now pushing for a new one. And it is not just for non-proliferation, but to secure a stable Middle East. That stability is crucial for advancing his regional plans, like the India-Middle East-Europe corridor and the ambitious Gaza Riviera project. But the talks have stalled. The main reason for the stalemate: Iran insists on its right to enrich uranium for peaceful purposes, while the US demands stricter limits to prevent any path to nuclear weapons.
They seek enrichment. We can't have enrichment. We want just the opposite. And so far, they're not there. I hate to say that because the alternative is a very, very dire one, but they're not there. They have given us their thoughts on the deal, and I said, it's just not acceptable.
Neither side has been willing to compromise, leaving the region in suspense. As negotiators prepare for the crucial meeting, the world watches closely, hoping diplomacy can still win the day and prevent a new crisis in the Middle East. Bureau Report, India Today.
Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg is in news again, but reasons are unrelated to climate and environment. She was aboard a vessel, an aid vessel bound to Gaza, and was intercepted by the Israeli forces because it defied naval blockade. They were trying to get aid to Gaza, and now she's been deported to Sweden.
Swedish activist Greta Thunberg got deported from Israel on Tuesday. She and the crew aboard the Medlin, a Gaza-bound aid ship, were intercepted and detained by the Israeli Navy in international waters on Monday. Israeli Foreign Ministry said that Thunberg was put on a flight to France, from where she would continue her journey to Sweden. Greta, along with other pro-Palestinian activists, were taken to Tel Aviv airport ahead of their deportation. Earlier, the Israeli Foreign Ministry had released the first images of Greta Thunberg at the port of Ashdod. The ministry, in a statement in X, said they had undergone medical examinations.
Phones need to go. Phones need to go, please.
Israeli forces boarded a charity vessel Medlin attempting to reach the Gaza Strip but defying the Israeli naval blockade. The British-flagged yacht Medlin is a part of Freedom Flotilla Coalition, or FFC. It's an organization that campaigns against Israel's blockade of Gaza. Meanwhile, casualties were brought to Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City after Israeli gunfire killed at least 17 Palestinians and wounded dozens as thousands of displaced people approached an aid distribution site of a US-backed humanitarian group in central Gaza. The Israeli military said its forces fired warning shots at suspects who were advancing in the area of Wadi Gaza and posed a threat to the troops. It added that it was aware of reports that several were injured, but argued numbers released by local health authorities did not align with the information they collected.
Al-Shifa Medical Complex has received 25 martyrs and 70 injured. Most of these martyrs and wounded were from the Humanitarian Aid Distribution Center in the Netzarim area. All the wounded who came to us were in a very critical condition. They were shot all over their bodies, and some of them had serious injuries all over their bodies. And they need surgical interventions such as neurosurgery, vascular surgery, orthopedics, and general surgeries.
The maritime zone of the coast of Gaza.
Last week, Israeli forces had warned Palestinians not to approach routes leading to sites of the US-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, or GHF, between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. local time, describing these roads as closed military zones. The GHF began distributing food packages in Gaza at the end of May, overseeing a new model of aid distribution, which the United Nations says is neither impartial nor neutral. Bureau Report, India Today.
That's all in this edition of World Today. But before I go, here's an interesting story. The way you use your iPhone and Apple devices is going to change, with Apple now announcing new software updates at the Worldwide Developers Conference. Cyrus John with more.
Apple just dropped one of the most futuristic software updates we've seen in years across iPhones, iPads, and even the Macs. With iOS 26 and iPadOS 26, you're getting a dramatic visual overhaul, AI features baked into daily use, and tools that blur lines between your devices. So, if you're using an Apple product, your experience is about to change in a big way. Here's what Apple WWDC showed us. A new design, more AI features, and a new name. Apple just showcased its new software lineup at WWDC 2025, and Apple users can expect something refreshing in the months to come. Apple is calling its new iOS 26 design Liquid Glass, a sleek, translucent UI refresh that's not just eye candy, but deeply adaptive. Your home screen, widgets, and apps now respond to your environment, wallpaper, and lighting. Everything feels more fluid, more unified, and yes, more futuristic. You can now translate FaceTime calls, live conversations, and even messages in real time, even offline. Perfect for travelers and global teams. iMessage gets long-awaited group features, polls, emoji reactions, AI writing tools, and typing indicators. And Apple Intelligence now interacts with what's on your screen, offering relevant suggestions in real time. For iPhones with USB-C, there's Stage Manager. Plug in an external display, resize apps, and multitask like you're on a desktop. The camera app also gets a floating Vision OS style UI. And switching from iPhone to Android, you can now move your eSIM wirelessly with a simple QR code. No more calls to the carrier. And iPad OS 26 makes iPads feel more like a laptop than ever. There's now support for background tasks and live activities, so downloads and renders continue even when you switch apps. The Files app has been rebuilt with better navigation, colored tags, and seamless syncing. You also get true multi-window multitasking with resizable windows, Windows Set, and a layout engine that feels a lot more like Mac OS. There's even an upgraded cursor experience and keyboard enhancements that make productivity smoother. Mac OS gets a refresh with Mac OS Tahoe, a liquid glass redesign, smarter spotlight, a native phone app, and AI tools like Genmoji and AI Writing Assist. It also introduces a Games app for better gaming organization across devices. The new watchOS gives you a live workout feed via voice and also has a nifty flick-to-cut calls feature. And Vision OS 26, it adds spatial widgets, PlayStation VR game controller support, and a very cool look-to-scroll feature where your eyes become the scroll wheel. This is indeed a design overhaul for Apple users with a more futuristic look. Now, previews of these new software developments will come in July for public beta users, and the final release will happen somewhere near the launch of the iPhone 17 in September. So yes, your Apple devices are about to feel brand new and a whole lot smarter. For a detailed look, you can also go to our YouTube channel Fiber, where we have done an in-depth look into how the new software looks on iOS and Apple devices. Stay tuned, we'll be back with more tech.